this is actually kind of a refreshing book because I've been thinking this a lot lately this year. Every year people do their New Year's resolutions and they think, what should I do or what should I add to my routine? What should I do differently or better? And so on. And this book was kind of Essentialism. It was a productivity or time management book, which is a really good one to start the year with. But it kind of started from the opposite perspective. Instead of what should I be doing that I'm not doing now, it was what am I doing that I can get rid of? What is really important to me and what is not. And I guess I see this as a lot of our clients come to us with big plans and things, that they want to do and everything else. And sometimes it's the right thing and sometimes it's not the right thing. And sometimes it's way too many things. And sometimes we have to core that down to, okay, well, we can really only effectively do maybe 3 things in the first 90 days or, reach maybe 3 goals in the first 90 days effectively. And everything else, if we try to run in too many directions at the same time, then we become a whole lot less effective. And I think we've gotten a lot better as an agency and as a team, and most of our clients have gotten a whole lot better if they pare down what they do instead of expand what they do.
80% of this, my mom and my dad told me.
Oh yeah, your mom and dad were very smart.
Well, each of them in their own piece, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you look at this and I thought, no, my mom could have written part of this.
So your mom would have liked this book.
I don't know if she would have liked it, but she could have written part of it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, let me make sure that we are recording. I think we are. Yep, we are.
Says so.
That is one of the really nice things about these meetings that Angel set up for us is they all record automatically. So that's cool. All right. Well, let's just go around the room once and maybe first impressions of the book. What did you think? What did you like or dislike? Or what was maybe one thing that stood out to you? And anybody want to go first? John, since you were first in the room, you can, well, I guess you were second in the room. Angel was first this time.
For me, um, I just read first few chapters. I haven't finished the book yet,
Mhm.
but I it makes me it's about the book is about doing less for to make better quality on what you do rather than saying yes to everything and um having your quality less impact or because sometimes um back when I was in my previous company, I always say yes to everything because I thought it is the way that I can prove myself that I am productive. But in reality, I was going back and forth on every task because I was not focused enough. So this book really reminds me that um we should choose our time we should choose where our time goes so that we can give more quality results than quantity results.
Absolutely. And I know I'm the worst as far as, just piling stuff on and saying, can we also do this? And can we also do that? Can we also do this? And here's another thing. And can you squeeze this in before we meet with this guy again? Those kinds of things. So I love it when, and, not all the time, but I sometimes love it when you guys say, okay, I've got these 10 things. Which of them do you need me to do first? So I think that's, it takes some courage, to do that with a client or with a boss, and that's a crazy thing, but that's the difference I think between a professional person and somebody who is just doing what they're told, and
Mhm.
that's a crazy thing.
I think the part I liked is trade-offs are inevitable. I
Mm.
had a boss at one time that worked for a company with a similar credentials as what your logo is, who said everything is number one, and I pushed back on that every time, and to the point where he got angry.
Hmm.
Didn't matter.
Everything's
Like I told him, it doesn't matter whether you get mad or not. There is only one number one
Mhm.
priority. It doesn't matter how many you throw out there and how what you say. It doesn't matter. I
Mhm.
think the problem is he wanted to abdicate the decision.
Ah, and then it wouldn't be his fault.
Yep,
Whatever didn't get done was somebody else's decision.
I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, you never know, but
yeah. Well, that's another side of this, I think, is courage, because it takes a lot of courage to stop doing something. And sometimes we stop doing something temporarily. We'll say, you know what, we are overloaded. Let's cut back on doing circle this month. Let's cut back on this or let's cut back on that because we have this other thing that is more important. But that's a decision that has a risk to it because whatever it is that you committed to, there's always a good reason for everything that you do, usually a good reason for everything that you do. So something's going to suffer, but you only have so much capacity. I kind of like our budget, the way that we do things that we need or that we want or need to buy. They go on a list and then they get prioritized, so we can't spend money on everything every month. It all goes on a list and then we prioritize, here's number one, number 1.5, number 1.75, number two. And, as things get added, they end up with decimal numbers because we need to put them in the right order. And, we weren't anticipating that we were going to have a printer break or that we were going to have something else happen or that we're going to need something expensive. And, so that list is always changing, but there's never more than one number one priority, right? I guess one of the things that there was a book by Perry Marshall that we read a couple of years ago called the 80/20 rule and it was 80/20 sales and marketing. And it was about the 20% of things that need to be done in order to make sales. And we tend as human beings to focus on the things that we like or the things that are easy. So, and I do this too, if I have sales calls to make or I have stuff to do that is really kind of on the cutting edge, I have a tendency to do everything else. I'll clean up my office. I will, I'll organize my files. I will do whatever else I can think of because, it's just more fun and less of a pain in the neck than actually going toe to toe with people and having done the research and taking a risk, so that's something that we have to push beyond our comfort zone to get into that 20% that really makes a difference because the 80% is where we're more comfortable. And so I have to push myself into that 20% of, here's where the difference is really made, or here's where the leverage really is. Um, how about if let's see, I think Ying and Ben, you probably have thoughts on this, but
Yeah, for me, my first impression about the book, it is really about being more intentional with how we live. So it challenges the idea that being busy or, for instance, doing more automatically means that we are being effective,
mhm,
but instead it asks us to slow down and choose what actually matters. And I also remember a saying that
mhm,
says, a jack of all trades is a master of none.
mhm,
So I think that book really connects to that saying because the book is basically arguing that when we try to do everything, we end up not doing anything particularly well. So, yeah, I think that's
mhm.
it.
Yeah, I love that. And, we get caught up in that. I get caught up in that because all of the technology that all of our clients use, we end up spending hours and hours and hours and hours sometimes solving a problem for one person that is a technology problem. And it's just like, you know what? You could go to your Apple store and go to the Genius Bar and solve this problem. This is not really a marketing problem. This is a technology problem with your email, getting this email signature to work. So sometimes I need to step back and give people a path, but not be in the middle of it. And same thing with, um, we have a client with a podcast that is not working, and it's just like, well, you can set up a new account, you can use this new account that we set up for you, but this is the limit of what we're going to help you with. Otherwise you should be working with the help desk of your technology, not with us. This is not a marketing problem. And I usually wait way too late before I do that, and because I want to help people, I want to solve their problem and I want to dive down the rabbit hole with them and I want a satisfying conclusion for everybody. So, that's one thing that I do, is, chase those edge cases to the point of no return, which is probably not a great practice on my part. So that's one thing I'm resolving to do, as a difference from this book. I know, with the DBT, you guys have a technology that could do so many things. There's so many use cases and things that you could do with that um, when we first started with Michael, it was just like, should we do the UAV? Should we do the cargo? Should we do the business jet? There's so many things, but settling on one has really helped you guys focus on, these are the people we really need to buy this aircraft. So that's kind of an exercise in this essentialism, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
From a business point of view.
right. And then just narrowing that down to the two-seat aircraft, or the two-seat private aircraft, and the regional air mobility. That's really helped us focus the message so that it's not just pie in the sky. There's so many things this could do, which means it doesn't do, there's not
Well,
a
people don't follow it.
yeah, exactly. Right.
It's hard to sell something that does everything for everyone.
Hmm. Exactly. And I think a lot of companies do that. They stay in the theoretical stage because they don't want to close any doors. But you have to start closing those doors if you want to really get focused.
Hmm.
Yeah. We're starting a new organization, called AAOA, or Aircraft Acquisition and Operations Alliance. And it's really hard to get traction on a new organization until you start closing some doors and saying, you know what, if you're not involved with an aircraft transaction, then you're probably not somebody that would be ideal for this group. And we started putting some lines in the sand and started taking some action and saying, okay, let's put a webinar together. And if we're going to put a webinar together, then we need to choose a topic, choose a speaker, choose a problem that we're going to solve, and move forward. Instead of it all being just this nebulous, beautiful possibility, we have to make it a very concrete reality. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. Anyway, that's a couple of things that I really loved about the book, and I really like that we're doing it in January because we can get there, um, this year, and maybe pick one thing that we're going to get rid of in 2026. And so for me, it's going to be chasing those technology edge cases, and start focusing on, if it's not marketing, we're not going to spend time on it, or I'm not going to spend time on it, with clients and things like that. But I will find alternatives for people, and send them down a path, but I'm not going to chase those paths, if that makes sense. I don't know if anybody else has any resolutions that come from this, or anything that you'd rather not chase, or anything you'd like to talk about.
Well, just because you reorganized, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of. You just reprioritize.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
maybe what it is that you have been doing needs to go to the bottom of the list, and it may fall off, but it doesn't
Mhm.
have to.
That's true. Yeah, and customers understand that as well. Clients understand that, it's just like, okay, well, we can come back to this in a week or two. If I have time, I will look for opportunities to solve this problem. But, for now, I think your best option is to do A, B, and C, to see if you can resolve that, because it's not really a marketing problem, and that's an okay thing to say. Angel, I know you and I have gone the rounds on some of this. It's just like, well, here's the thing that maybe we shouldn't be doing, or maybe we should do differently. And that's one of the things that I really respect about the fact, we've been working together for more than a year. So we've got a relationship where you can hopefully feel really comfortable about saying, you know what, I've got 10 things to do and 8 of them are going to get done. Which two are the ones you want me to defer or delay, or uh, not do, or assign to somebody else, or delegate?
Yeah, because the greatest value we really create both for our clients and for our personal work comes from um, not actually doing more, but from doing what truly matters with of course, with clarity, with intention, and also with excellence, because we help clients identify the few actions that will create the greatest impact rather than overwhelming them with a lot of options.
Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. There's a restaurant in the United States called the Cheesecake Factory. They have actually a marketing study called the Cheesecake Factory Effect. The Cheesecake Factory has a 30-page menu. I'm not kidding. It's like 20 pages of, well, I'm exaggerating, but it has several pages of bread, appetizers, entrees, light entrees, gluten-free entrees, all kinds of things. And people take forever to order at the Cheesecake Factory because they're studying the menu and it takes forever. And they finally cut that down a little bit because when people have more choices, they are actually less effective at making good decisions sometimes.
Mhm.
So, and in our situation, we're talking with executives who have a marketing problem. They need to make a decision quickly. They don't want to spend a week figuring out, should I be at level 1, 2, 3, or 2.5, or whatever? What all do I need to be doing? And a lot of marketing agencies will have this whole Chinese menu of you can get a website and a email campaign and a brochure, and you can get one thing from column A and two things from column B. And we've made that our service is to figure out what they need, so they may not know what they need. And that's our job, is to help them figure that out. And so the only choices you have with us are, what service level do you want? And there's only 3 of those now that are on our website. Used to be more. But I think we figured out that people make decisions better when they have fewer choices sometimes. It sounds counterintuitive, and I know, um, John, you'll probably disagree with this because, you love stores that have 47 kinds of mustard. Even though you only want one kind of mustard, you want to go to a store that has 47 kinds because you like to see the variety and all of that.
The choices in in a store like that are different from the choices in business.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Ben just shared the cheesecake menu in the
Well, it didn't
in the
do the
notes.
whole thing. If you go to the browser and go to the menu, it scrolls down forever. It
Yeah.
just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and scrolls.
Hmm. Exactly. And
I thought I could just do a quick PDF of the thing, but it doesn't let you. I
right.
think, oh no, there it is. Well, never mind. Okay.
Yeah. But it's
Why did that?
insane. And it's just like I just want to go to lunch. I don't want to do brain surgery, It's just. And most of us, when we go, or when I go to a restaurant, it's more about the people that I'm with than it is about the food. I mean, food is fine. I love food, don't get me wrong. But if they have 3 or 4 good choices, then that's great. And I don't necessarily want to order something different every time. And, the amount of variety doesn't matter to me as much as the atmosphere and the um, ability to just have a nice dinner with friends. And we don't want to all get buried in the menu for half an hour and waste our time together.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the menu. You can click on it. It just scrolls for.
Oh my gosh.
It's a huge menu, but yes, Cheesecake Factory's.
Hmm.
It has
You
a
have
lot of categories.
a lot of calories too. That's true.
Oh yeah, no, if you add up the calories, it's huge.
Right. Well, they assume
My friend, we used to go there sometimes, and you want to know if he actually asked the waitress if this particular dish came with a side of defibrillator.
right. Yeah, John and I once
Um,
went to a cheesecake factory. We ordered like one thing and split it because it was just way too many.
oh, they're huge.
Yeah.
But the focus thing is good. I mean, I think the intention part, I
Mm.
didn't get to that, but that was the part that stuck out. The idea of being intentional. I
Hmm.
mean, you do that all the time. I can't tell you how many workshops I've run for clients. I did one for the state of Colorado for one of the regulatory agencies,
Yeah.
and they had a terrible habit of saying yes to everything. and so did Department of Transportation. They had a huge tablecloth size strategic top priorities. There must have been 40 or 50 top priorities, which means there are none.
Yeah, there are no top priorities. Yeah.
So I spent, I don't know, must have been 2 weeks in several meetings with the executive director of a state department, convincing a very intelligent woman that she was just plain going to have to say no to some stuff in her regulatory agency. And then when we did the workshop, and the team put together a list of things they wanted to do, and she and the team agreed on the top 5. And probably the most rewarding part of the whole workshop was when they said, God, we thought you wouldn't pick anything. You just tell us to do it all, and we'd get none of it done again for the 8th year in a row. Now we have 5 things to do. The funny part was it took them 8 months to do all 5 things, and they were forced into the next 3 because they had nothing to do for 4 months.
Oh, good. That's a
So
great
they ended
problem.
up doing a lot more
Mhm,
than they had anticipated. They did the 5,
mhm.
and then they went to the next 3 because they had a list. So they just went to the next priorities.
Yeah.
But that's the most they'd ever done. In 100 years of history, they got 8 things done in a year that were major initiatives for the state.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it was an intentional, but it's really hard to say no.
Yeah.
Like that took days of discussion. You're just gonna have to say no. Well, they'll be depressed. They'll get mad. They won't do. No, they'll respect that maybe. And if they don't, well, you can always fall back on yes to everything.
You won't be any worse off than you are now. Well, and elected officials, I mean, that's got to be really hard because you were elected to serve your constituents, and then you have to pick and choose. Okay, well, we
Yeah.
can't do everything. We're going to have to select the greatest good for the greatest number or whatever method you choose to.
One of Steve Jobs' most famous quotes was, "The thing that makes Apple successful is what we say no to."
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
that's true.
And they say no to a lot of really valuable. To anybody else, it's a whole business.
Hmm.
To Apple, it's a distraction. He used to say, "We're only going to do the things that only we can do,
Yeah. If some
and
other company
nothing
can do it
else."
better, that's why they don't do cases, they don't do
That's
any.
why they don't do a lot of things. They dabble in certain things to prove it can be done, or they do certain things to give customers an option to buy something, but they're very limited
Yeah,
in what they're willing to do that they don't think is core. And
right.
it's the intentionality that jumped out when you look at this book. It's like, yeah, the idea, because I really need to sit down and do some of that work.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in the morning, you go through email and I'm thinking, how much of this is really useful?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go through it to see what's important and find all the stuff that's critical because
Yeah,
it's buried in the 1,000 emails that you get every day.
that buried treasure in your email or buried landmines in your email. You got to find those. So.
Oh my God. When I was at Ernst & Young, and this was back at the beginning of the internet age. I mean, we were doing internet startups. That was, the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still getting 1,000 emails a day.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
just can't. It was impossible.
yeah.
And Ernst & Young was an empty your inbox every day company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, you
I
weren't meant
would
to have a
probably
lot of.
die there.
You were not meant to have a lot of emails in your inbox.
Wow. Okay.
But most people got like 15.
Yeah,
I mean, most of these guys were getting very limited number of emails.
yeah. You definitely
I
were
don't know
subscribing from
what I did wrong.
everything. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, well, as a complete aside, when we were transitioning the DARPANET to the internet, which was a job
Ah,
I had in the
whoa.
70s,
Yeah.
so that where we worked for NIST, the National Institute of Standards, and the military came to NIST and said, "We've got this connection of computers and we don't know what to do with it." But we think so. NIST decided to make it public.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on that project. It was about 12 of us trying to figure out how to migrate this thing
Yeah.
from the private military to the public use.
Mm.
And there was a guy with a 3x5 card that kept track of all the internet addresses.
Wow. That was a
He
while back.
assigned internet addresses off of a 3x5 card that he kept in his pocket. Oh, you need an internet address. Wait, how about this one? And he would write it down on the card so he didn't use it again.
Oh my gosh.
And we're like, yeah, not going to work for long. How many of those cards do you have? But anyway, one of the guys in my research group just sold a bicycle and he put it on the internet to sell it. He sent it out to the mailing list.
Okay.
Hey, I got a bicycle to sell. This created, and I won't waste much time, this created a huge problem. This thing went out, and about 2 hours later, we're in this research facility in South Carolina. We get a call from the Pentagon by the chief of staff for the Navy, right? This is the chief of naval operations, chief of staff. And he's saying, I can't decode the message you sent. What book is it in? And I'm like, what? He said, we don't have a bicycle for sale code. What book are you in?
So he thinks it's like military codes or something. With
He had
bicycles.
spun up half the Sixth Fleet and a whole lot of Marines.
Oh
Yeah, we were like, actually, it's a bicycle for sale. And
like
there
a
was just
real
silence.
bicycle actually for sale.
He gets like one email a day, and they're all top security emails. He gets this. He thought it was an encrypted message. He called Hawaii, spun up the Sixth Fleet. He called the Marines. He's like, we're going to decrypt this. You guys should get ready. We had thousands of people in motion selling a bicycle.
Standing on alert because of this bicycle for sale.
Yeah, we learned a lot about the internet that day. But that's a complete aside.
That's a great story.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah.
But the book, I like the idea of living intentionally. And most of the time when you're on a project, you're so focused on the project. That's why consulting companies fail, because you're so busy delivering the work, you forget to sell the next job, or you don't sell the next job.
Right.
And the best consultant businesses that I know are the guys that somehow manage to balance that.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the funny part about this, when you're intentional and you step back. And that's probably what I'm not doing as well as I could be. I know I owe things for DBT that I haven't done because I'm doing something else, but I'm not sitting there thinking, which of these is going to have the single biggest impact in the next month or 2 months, or how do I balance what I have to do to get through this week with what's going to make us successful by the end of the year.
Yeah. And that's actually a conversation I had with another client just recently. He was actually
Wait, you have another client?
I'm
crushed. Wait, that has never come up before.
Exactly.
I thought it was Erica and I.
It is. It's Erica and you. No, actually, there are some clients that are just so swamped, and in a way that's great. We love to have our MROs like fully booked. We love to have our people with so much work they don't know what to do with themselves, which is great. But this one client was saying, I am thinking about pausing services with ABCI because I don't have time to keep up with all my to-dos. And I'm like, you know what? Nobody keeps up with all their to-dos. That's really just there to hold that for when you have time. We should be saving you time, not spending your time. And, completely missing the point if you think all of this needs to be done every month in order to be successful. These are all just things that we can and should do. So, and we went through that whole exercise and things like that, and he delegated some stuff back to us. And that's really the way it should be. There's a book by Tim Ferriss, a completely ridiculous book with a completely ridiculous title, I should say. The book is fantastic. It's called The 4-Hour Workweek, and it was several years ago. And the premise of that book is that everything that you are doing, 80% of everything that you are doing, could be automated, delegated, or eliminated. So whenever you do a task, you should think through, could this be, eliminated? Think about that first. What would happen if I didn't do this task? Would it really cause that much damage? What about if I automate this task? And this is so much better now than it was back when that book was written, because we have AI, we have agents, we have software, we have all kinds of things that we didn't have 10 years ago when that book was written. And also, can I delegate? And this is something that I've gotten better at in the last 2 years. Um, when Angel and I started working together, I was just like, I have to do everything myself, and I'm not sure how to make this work together. So it took a lot of trust and a lot of work together on our part to get that to work. So if you can do one of those three things with 80% of what's on your list, then you're left with the 20% that really matters, or the 20% that you can have the most leverage. And I love that. And that's kind of the personal side of it. And then you take that to an organizational level. And we can think as an organization or as an agency, what can we eliminate? What can we automate? What can we delegate? And like the email problem, let's delegate that to the Apple Store. That's really not something a marketing agency should be doing, is fixing somebody's email bug. That's something that is not in our purview to be doing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I love that connection, I guess, between those two books. Or I love seeing the connections between books and seeing some things that we could do differently with that. And of course, we're adding things. This year we added our our scorecards. But I think what that will do is it will help us narrow this down to what's going to move the needle for each client. And can we narrow it down to 3 big recommendations for 2026 for each client? If they do these 3 things, that will have the biggest leverage in their marketing system, as opposed to you have to keep track of these 25 things. But in order to do that, we have to document those 25 things and get them onto a scorecard. But after we've done that once, I think we're eliminating a lot more work than we're causing. I know it doesn't seem like that now to my team, who are compiling all these scorecards and compiling all this data and everything else. But I think once we have a handle on it, then there will be parts of this that we can automate, and parts of this that we can delegate, and parts of this that we can eliminate, because we're narrowing it down to what's the most important.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I love that chapter in Essentialism about it's not personal necessarily, it's structural, the busyness or the craziness that makes us all go bananas. As an organization, we need to think about making this safe to push back and say, I can't get this done, or I don't think this is the best thing to do, or I think there's a simpler, easier way to do this.
Yeah. I wonder if it's more fear of missing out of something, or
Ah,
you don't know until you look at it.
the
I
dreaded
don't
pit.
know.
Yeah.
When you're busy enough, when I was running a business unit,
Mm.
it was so busy, there was just things you couldn't do. You delegated because you had to,
Hmm.
you know, you
Yeah.
just couldn't. But there were a lot of things I would have liked to have been involved with.
Hmm.
Yes.
So when you have the time, you get involved.
Hmm.
And I do wonder, because it's some of the leadership coaching I've done is the idea of telling other people to do things I don't do.
Hmm.
The idea of saying, okay, you're going to have to delegate that. You got to get away from it. You got to let them do it. And
Yeah.
if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. You just fix it, later.
Hmm.
Doesn't always, some of the projects have risk consequences that don't allow that, but
Hmm.
police, fire, rescue, we were doing that training. You have to be a lot. There's a balancing act
Mm.
because people might get dead, but funny enough, they're against that.
Yeah. Oh, imagine.
But yeah, imagine. But generally, of all the people that know how to get their hands off of something, probably some of these people in the highest risk
Mhm.
jobs know how to do that the best.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think, in a lot of cases, they just go in and fix what needs to be fixed. They leave a mess. They don't care, about a lot of things that the rest of us do. Um, my mom had a medical emergency recently. Everything was fine, but the emergency response people had to get into her apartment,
Oh,
and so they just broke her door. Yes,
yeah, yeah.
in the most hideous fashion. They just completely broke her. And I'm really happy that they did, and I'm very, very grateful that it all worked out and everything else. But we did not care at the time. But there were a lot better ways they could have done that. But we don't care. So it's all about what is the number one job, and that is getting in there. And then you worry about, is this going to be fixable later?
When I was working in an environmental department, again with the state, it's interesting generationally. The people, when you work for Veterans Association, which I did a lot of work for them,
Mhm,
they had a pretty easy priority system. The bar for stressing them out
mhm.
was very, very high.
Yeah.
Anybody that had been in combat, they
Mm.
just, hey, this is an administrative task. None of
Mhm.
this is going to get me killed. I'll do it when I can. I'll do the best job I can. They're very motivated to do a good job, but the more junior folks that had never been in any of these high stress situations, they would get stressed out over stuff, and you're like, yeah, that really on the scale is pretty low, and they would explode over it. You'd have huge battles over things
Mhm.
that, because the bar is so low, the things that matter, the priorities are, and it's different, but that's true. And I think that's where some of this book comes from, is if you haven't been under a huge amount of stress
Mhm.
and forced to shed things to do, same thing with flying. When
Mhm.
things go wrong in a plane, and I've had that happen more than once,
Mhm.
you start to dump stuff.
Mhm.
You're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
going to do whatever you do to keep the plane in the air and get on the ground safely, and all kinds of stuff go inside. And that was the whole point of the idea of defining a piece of regulation that basically said in an emergency, a pilot can do whatever he has to do,
Yeah.
and all other rules are
Throw the book
gone.
out the window, yeah, and just
Right.
solve
You
the
don't have
problem.
to apply, you don't have to comply with any FAR regulation
Mhm.
if you're in an emergency. You can just pick and choose the ones that keep you alive.
Mhm.
Yep.
And that is a powerful statement saying you need to prioritize.
Yeah. That's why I love this industry, is because this is the kind of people that are able to focus so well. Aviate, navigate, communicate, and if you
Every time in
yeah,
that order.
right, in that order. And if you're not communicating, they assume that you are aviating. You're busy, and they won't bother you until you get your stuff together, to the point where you can communicate again. And we've all been in on a small scale or a large scale situations where we've had to ignore everything except the one thing
Mm.
that's going to save everybody, and that's that's huge. And it's a huge part of the culture, I think. I remember at a financial institution we were working at, everybody's scurrying around like bats. I mean, it was just crazy because something was going on. It was a computer problem. And John and B. George were two people that had been in combat. They'd been shot at. They'd been, in situations where, things that are much more important were going on. And those two were standing around chatting while the rest of us are running around like crazy
Oh, yeah.
people. But you can definitely tell people who have either been aviators or people who've been in the military or people who've been in emergency response, because they have such a great way of focusing, and they're just telling jokes while everybody else is going bananas.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting to watch. And I've been in those when the state had emergencies,
Yeah.
and the military guys, they always say it takes a while to get into what they call a battle rhythm. We had
Yeah.
floods in Colorado, and
Mm.
they said, yeah, it takes you a little while to get into a battle rhythm. But once everybody's in that sync,
Hmm.
mountains get moved, things happen.
Hmm.
But it is, when we were doing police training, we were looking for best practice. Turns out it doesn't exist.
Mm.
The police hate that term, best practice. But one of the things, because it's so different everywhere, it's
Yeah.
really quite shocking how differently police are trained. But the FBI they used to shoot everybody.
Mm.
When you were an FBI agent and you went to training, they shot you with a rubber bullet multiple times. You would break into a room to attack a drug den kind of scenario, and they'd shoot you. And what they found was quite shocking. You know, the brain response. The first time they go through the door, the heart rate's 160. The brain is very narrow. They're hyper you know, they're blinders. They're not thinking anymore. They're just responding.
Mm-hmm.
By the fifth time, the heart rate's in the 80s, maybe the 70s. They're thinking about scenarios. They're
Another
really
day.
assessing the situation. They're managing their team.
Yeah.
It's very different, which is a little bit different than essentialism, but I think the book doesn't cover the idea that there's a whole lot of learned, you know, where is your bar? How much stress?
Yeah.
If you're reading that book and all you've ever done is gone to college,
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine you would understand when you're in it
Mm-hmm.
that you're in it.
I was going to say the core is the same, you know, it's just how do you get there? And some people get there through duress, you know. This
Well,
is
you have to go stress test it. That's why
yeah.
flight simulators were invented, because it turns out stress testing people in airplanes didn't work out so well. Um,
Yes,
Yeah.
expensive.
Well, that was, you know, World War II, you know, there was a fair number of training accidents from stress testing pilots. And
Yeah, yeah.
um, so, yeah, it's way cheaper to do. But that's the simulator is all about messing with your head
Mm-hmm.
because you know it's a simulator. So you know you're not going to die. So you're thinking, so by the time you get into the real circumstance, half these pilots will tell you they're halfway down the list before they realize they're even using the list,
Mm-hmm. True.
you know.
I guess the question is, how do we get to that level of focus without shooting at anybody or getting shot at or having that level of stress, you know, because that's what we're
Yeah, I
trying
don't
to
know.
avoid is, you know, how do we just get to that peak performance without the stress? And, you know, I think that's kind of the point of the book is let's leave out that top end of law enforcement and military and everything else, but regular people in regular organizations. How do we get that focused?
Stephen Kotler. You ever read
Okay.
him?
Yeah,
Do you know him? Yeah, the
yeah.
flow dynamics. He
I
wrote
think
all
we've
those
got
books
one of
on
his on.
flow.
We've got one of his books on our list this year. I think maybe I'm
He's
wrong.
really good. I
Yeah.
actually spoke to some of his folks in that organization at one point.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to do something together or get them to Colorado, or
Mm-hmm.
can't remember the exact circumstance, but I had a couple of really interesting conversations. They're a little bit flaky, and they closed the business we were trying to do with them.
Mm.
So they used to do these kind of class coaching things. They don't do them anymore. But they have a whole idea of how you can move your brain into flow, which is intentionality. Again,
Yeah.
you have to intentionally take steps to get into flow.
Yeah. Exactly.
And a lot of what this book covers is the stuff they're saying, you know, get rid of all this stuff that knocks you out of flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think Stephen Covey does it a little bit differently with, you know, the 7 habits of highly effective people. That several of those habits have to do with focusing on what's most important. You know, first things first, and you know, the 4 quadrants of
Oh
important,
yeah.
urgent, not important, not, you know, and a lot of us, you know, spending more time in quadrant 2, which is uh, important but not urgent. You know, what's important but, you know, doesn't necessarily get surfaced because we're so busy doing the unimportant urgent things. You know, it looks like it needs to be done today, but it maybe is less important than something that's 6 months out, but still should deserve that time more than something that
It's
has an
actually
time.
not as big a fan of Covey, but that's actually the Eisenhower matrix.
Yeah,
General Eisenhower.
he may have stolen it from
The
Eisenhower. I don't know.
He did. But it is, if you want to get from colonel to 5-star general in 19 months,
Mm-hmm.
that matrix works.
Okay.
He was a colonel at the beginning of the war.
Oh, wow. Well, there's nothing like a war to improve your rank.
No, it was his management style. It wasn't the war per se, it was a circumstance, but
Yeah,
he had that matrix through his military career. He understood from West Point on, this is how you get things done and how you work with people.
yeah, yeah.
And he was very good at working with people whose culture he probably didn't even understand.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. Interesting.
So I met somebody that worked for him. He was his chief of staff
Yeah.
for a very long time. And he had multiple personalities. So you knew what, when you talk about essentialism, you knew what was important. Because sometimes, even when he was president, you would refer to him as general. If he was in the command and control mode,
Mhm.
not the facilitate a lot of conversation mode, it was general. Yes, general, we're going to do that right now. We're already doing it, general.
Right.
If you were in the Oval and he's having this conversation, it was always, yes, Mr. President. Well, that's interesting. Let's talk about this. Let's have this conversation. He would go all over the place on these conversations. But when he got to the command and control mode,
Hmm.
the conversation changed to, yes, General, we're already doing it. We
He
are on the way.
put on the virtual general hat and everybody knew it. His voice had
Oh,
changed.
you could tell. Apparently, I've never met Eisenhower
Yeah.
or even seen him, but apparently you could tell when he switched modes.
Mhm. I read a biography and I remember somebody's the writer's description of that change, and he started the whole, how people say, well, I have this hat on or that hat on. That was somebody that was describing Eisenhower. He had his general hat on or he had his president hat on, and that was how people described him, or how his staff talked about him, so that they could work with him.
Yeah, but it's to say, he was very intentional
Oh yeah, very
from the
essential.
time he was at West Point until the time he was the first. He was actually the only president
Mm,
to ever become president, which was a smaller job than the one he had before.
yeah, that's true. Took a demotion to be president.
Yeah,
So
it was a demotion to be only one country.
yeah. So let's just go around the room one time. It looks like we got about 10 minutes left, and maybe share one thing that you'd like to share or discuss. We'll do in order of appearance. So John, Angel, Ying, Ben.
Well, what nobody's talked about, I think, is the fact that this guy also says you have to say no to stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why pilots can do what they do in an emergency. They say no to everything except what's in front of them.
Mhm.
And that's something that a lot of management personnel never understand.
And it doesn't matter who's asking. I mean, if the president's in the back of the plane, you tell him, no, sir. You do whatever you got to do to fly the plane, right?
Actually, that is a training that when Prince Charles ran his jet off the end of a runway, that was exactly the training the British Air Force, the Royal British Air Force said that they would have to redo.
Mm. Yeah, because it doesn't matter who's talking. The answer is no. If that
The
logic.
pilot should have, not only should he have said no, but when the approach was going wrong, he
Mhm,
should have relieved him. And he didn't because he was the Prince of Wales.
mhm.
Well, I mean, you can see examples all across the world. I mean, like the guy flying a helicopter with the sports star
Yeah.
hunter flew into,
And Kobe Bryant, yeah.
yeah,
Mm,
the
that's right.
helicopter pilot was an idiot. I mean, could have saved all that just by saying, nope, can't do it. We'll do it later.
Well, the Challenger that went down in Maine,
Mm.
that's exactly what their initial assessment was. He shouldn't have attempted to depart.
Ah, yeah.
Was it Maine? Yeah, it was Maine. Just now, yesterday, day before.
Oh, wow.
The snow was sufficient that the
Yeah.
time he had between de-icing and departure was too short to actually depart.
Mm.
Yep.
Should have been a no.
It should have been a no.
Yeah.
But you know, it was a pressure job, and they were flying to Europe, and they wanted to go, and
Mhm.
so the pilot decided to go. They think he stalled the aircraft right after rotation.
Mm. Sad.
Challengers are nasty that way. They bite.
Mm. Angel, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, as we move towards 2026, I'm pretty sure demands and inputs continue to multiply. So for me, I should but in going to 2026, I should recognize the importance of choosing where to focus my time and energy. Um, learn to learn to step back to check the right priorities, make intentional choices, and commit only to what truly matter and what truly aligns to each of our clients, and an approach that have a clear decisions, stronger boundaries, and more sustainable ways to provide a focus and great service to each of these clients that we will be having in the near future.
Excellent. Yeah, that's tough. That is really tough, but that's the difference between us and other agencies, I think, so that's great.
Mm.
We just lost power, but we didn't.
Yeah, I saw that. The UPS has kicked in. So thank you for that, John. Ying,
Your
what do you
power's
think?
gone out. Is it storming?
No, it's not storming. It's
No, it's clear blue sky outside.
probably construction behind us. They're digging things, so I'm sure somebody probably messed something up and was not focused on what was important. Ying, what do you think?
Yeah, I also agree with Angel in making intentional choices. And for instance, creating content that actually matters, that's actually useful of our time.
Mhm.
And I also want to share, when I started working with ABCI, I noticed that different clients focus on different platforms. For instance, some are very active on LinkedIn because that's where their audience is, while others get better traction on Instagram. So what stood out to me is that the clients who are more um, the clients who are most effective aren't trying to do everything. So they're leaning into one or two channels that actually make sense for their business. And that really connects to the idea in the book about focus and being intentional instead of spreading yourself too thin just to keep up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that's going to be surfaced by these scorecards is you don't have to have every single channel active. You just have to have every piece of that wheel turning. And for some people that engine is LinkedIn, for some people that engine is Instagram. But as long as one of them is working well, and as long as they've got that engine rolling, it's great to have. In aviation, we love to have redundancy. We love to have more than one of every working part of an aircraft. So that if something fails, you've got a backup system of some kind. But we don't have to have 7 channels for every client. That's not successful. Successful is making sales. So, each of those channels is a means to an end, and, never more than probably 3 that they focus on. Any more than that becomes kind of a waste of energy. So thank you for that. That's an excellent point.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, here is to a more focused 2026. Hopefully we'll be saying no more, getting rid of more stuff, and actually being more effective because of it. I really appreciate you guys joining us this morning. And yeah, we will be seeing all of you again very soon in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Nice seeing you, Ben. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.